The Timberwolves have filled their last two-way contract slot and their final standard roster spot. Why the Timberwolves chose Zyon Pullin and SloMo Kyle Anderson to fill out the roster. Next.
You are Locked On Timberwolves, your daily Minnesota Timberwolves podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Wolves podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. Happy Tuesday, everybody. Happy Timberwolves game day. The Wolves take on the Memphis Grizzlies tonight. More on that later in the show. First, a big thank you for making Locked On Wolves your first listen every single day. Of course, Locked On Wolves is free and available everywhere. That includes YouTube as well as all of your favorite audio platforms. Wherever you like to listen to podcasts, you can find Locked On Wolves. My name is Ben Beecken. I'm the host of the daily Locked On Wolves podcast, and a lot to get to today. We're going to start with the Timberwolves roster. The Wolves have filled out their roster, presumably now. Deadline's upcoming for guys to be eligible to play in the playoffs. So they filled the 15th and final standard roster spot with SloMo Kyle Anderson, who we talked about on Friday when the eventual move was first reported late Thursday by Shams Charania of ESPN. And then also Zyon Pullin was signed, filling the Wolves' last two-way contract spot. We'll talk a little bit about the roster, machinations that Tim Conley has done here. And we'll talk a little bit about some Tim Conley loopholes that have been exploited in a very good way for the Timberwolves, and Zyon Pullin as a fit as well, why the Wolves landed on Pullan and SloMo. And then we'll close by talking Wolves Grizzlies. Memphis looks a whole lot different than they did a month ago when they beat the Timberwolves pre-trade deadline. It's a very different Grizzlies team, although they've won two straight. So we'll break down that roster, what to expect in the game this evening. All right, let's talk roster. So if you missed it, I did a bonus show on Friday. The report about SloMo rejoining the Timberwolves came down late Thursday. So the Wolves played last Thursday night. So the post-game pod was on Friday last week. And then Friday afternoon, I posted a bonus episode about the Kyle Anderson acquisition when it was reported. So I'm not going to talk as much about the specific fit for SloMo today, but what I had planned to talk about was Kyle Anderson over Tyus Jones and why the Wolves would not be signing Tyus Jones. And right before I went to record the podcast, Tyus Jones, it was announced he would be signing with the Denver Nuggets after being bought out by the Dallas Mavericks over the weekend. So that's not a potential move anymore, but I'll talk about why SloMo's a better fit than Tyus Jones. I also want to talk about Zyon Pullin, who I'm pretty excited about. The Wolves just signed him to a two-way deal after signing and then waiving Jules Bernard on his two-way deal. We'll talk about that move as well, and that's the loophole I want to get into. But let's start with Kyle Anderson and Tyus Jones and why SloMo is a fit with this roster over Tyus. The first thing, and also I should also say, there's a reason why it's not simply one or the other. The Wolves could have still added Tyus Jones if he had interest in coming to Minnesota, which I'm sure he would have, given that he's from Minnesota. He wanted to play for a contender. Ultimately, he's going to sign with another contender in the Denver Nuggets. There were reports over the weekend nationally, which I don't, how much of it was just the obvious Tyus connection, the idea the Wolves might need a point guard. Recency bias, sure. But the way Bones Highland played on Sunday in the win over Denver, how are you going to waive Bones Highland? And if you're going to also sign Kyle Anderson, they would have had to have chosen to let go of Bones Highland or perhaps Jalen Clark or Julian Phillips. None of those guys were going to get waived in favor of Tyus Jones, who's had a rough last, we'll call it 2 seasons between Phoenix and then Orlando and Dallas this year. Just, it hasn't been a good run for Tyus Jones. He's reaching that point in his career, smaller guard. Is he a replacement level backup point guard? Yeah, he would have been fine. He would have been a nice fit if that's what you're looking for. But what the Wolves are looking for right now is upside in the minutes in which a guy in this roster spot would need to play. Like Bones Highland, the high variance play of Bones, we talked about yesterday at the postgame pod in the wake of his 6 for 7 performance, the 15 first half points in the win over the Nuggets on Sunday, and how vital that was. Well, Tyus Jones isn't about to do that for the Denver Nuggets or anybody he would have signed with. That's not ever been Tyus's game. He's a completely different player than Bones Highland, which I know I'm not breaking any news here, but what do you need if you're the Wolves off the bench? In addition to Naz Reid, Ayo Dosunmu, they don't just need more guys who are going to be steady hands. If you need anything off the bench, it's going to be production. Tyus was never going to play heavy minutes. Like, we could talk about, yes, it would be better served to play with a floor general style point guard. First of all, there aren't very many of those in the league anymore. Second of all, it'd be nice, but if you don't have it, you're not going to take the square peg and fit it into the round hole. In this case, that would be, and what I mean by that is that's obviously what Tyus does. But at this stage in Tyus Jones's career, he's not doing that for 25, 28, 30 minutes a game, which is like, you'd be completely shifting what you're doing if you're the Wolves to try and find someone that does that. And you're not going to make Tyus play that many minutes at this stage in his career, and that wouldn't have made sense. So you'd be signing him to be your 11th guy or whatever the case would have been. And what do you want for your 11th guy? You don't need just another straw that stirs the drink. You need somebody that has high variance and can get out there and shoot you into a game. And yeah, Bones can shoot you out of a game like he did a few nights ago. There was a game he just didn't play well, but he can also keep you in the game with his shot making. And he did that against his former team in the Denver Nuggets on Sunday afternoon. And that was huge. Jalen Clark, beyond the fact that he's so young in his career that there is still some overall upside there, he's going to be a restricted free agent this offseason. But the niche role that he can play, where he can come in and be a lockdown guy, even if it's 2 minutes a game or end of quarter possessions or unique matchups late in the regular season into the playoffs, Jalen Clark can do those things. He is a legit plus defender, and I know he's struggled a little bit defensively lately, but he's still a plus defender. He struggled a little bit offensively, but he knows how to play. He knows the system, the whole thing. You're not going to move on from somebody with a unique set of skills, very different than Liam Neeson, but a unique set of skills in Jalen Clark, who fits a specific role in a contending team, for a guy who fits a very different role that you don't need. You might need a pinch hitter, if you will, a spot defender, but you don't need that you're not going to pinch hit in a spot minutes, a role playing point guard who can be a floor general. Like, he's not going to, that doesn't really help you going into the playoffs. Julian Phillips, there's obviously a little bit of upside. He's going to be on the team next year. You're not just going to walk away from that. You worry about, buyout and a guy who's not an expiring deal. Like that wasn't realistic anyway. So you're not going to create a roster spot for Tyus Jones, and Kyle Anderson's a better fit for all the reasons we talked about on Friday, why he's a good fit in the first place, which is I hope that he plays small ball 5. If you want to hear me talk more about this, listen to Friday's bonus episode. It's only about a 20-minute show, but I hope he plays small ball 5 alongside Naz Reid. I think non-Rudy Gobert minutes with Kyle Anderson, Jaden McDaniels, and Naz Reid in the front court will be very, very good. He can offensively do enough of what Julius Randle does as far as a point forward role, a hub, if you will. Somebody who can, play in the middle of the floor when the opposing team runs out a zone against you, and more than hold a zone as a team defender. And obviously he's not Rudy Gobert defensively, but he's still fairly switchable on the perimeter, understands the team defensive concept, can play multiple roles defensively as well. And he just fits, what they're looking to do. He can play, you can play him with bigger lineups if you want to play him at the 3 at this stage. And I should also note, I talked a lot on Friday about how you wouldn't want to play him and Rudy Gobert together. It's fair to point out that he did shoot the 3 well the last time he was in Minnesota, and until he had the eye issue, and he shot the 3 well in very limited volume this year. Could he still be good enough from the corners that you could play him along with either Reid or Randle and Gobert? I really don't think you can play Kyle Anderson, Randle, and Gobert together, because that's 3 guys that aren't shooting threes. Although Gobert did shoot a 3 the other night, which is crazy. But like Randle's like 31% now from 3, and Kyle Anderson's Kyle Anderson. So like there's still limitations to the lineups that you can play him with, but there's so many different combinations. And I think he's best suited to get 10 minutes as the non-Gobert 5, right? And stop trying to play Reid and Randle extended minutes together. And especially depending on matchups, putting him out there again with McDaniels and Naz Reid, I think is a really potentially a winning proposition for Minnesota. And I really love that fit. And I should also note, right before recording this podcast or earlier in the day on Monday, Kyle Anderson officially was signed by Minnesota. So it's very possible he's available to play against Memphis, his most recent former team times 2, with his former team and now current team, the Timberwolves, tonight, Tuesday night, at Target Center against the Grizzlies. Presumably he could be available. So all that to say, a good addition. That's why the Wolves chose SloMo over Tyus Jones. It makes a ton of sense. I want to get into Zyon Pullin next. I'm actually pretty excited about the acquisition, not because he's going to make a big difference the balance of this season, but because I hope he gets some minutes, probably surely garbage time, but also the indication that Minnesota, this is a player who could have some upside as far as being a backup point guard next year, and the reasons why I think they picked Zyon Pullin to fill this two-way slot. We'll break that down next. We'll close the show here today by talking Wolves Grizzlies tonight. We'll do all that here next on the show. Today's episode of Locked On Wolves is brought to us by our friends at Indeed. Workplace chaos, deadlines stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position you have to fill still sitting open. When the pressure's on and you need the right hire, this is a job for sponsored jobs. Indeed Sponsored Jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for: skills, experience, location. So you're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post. And here's a stat that says it all. In the 1 minute that I'm talking to you about Indeed, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed Sponsored Jobs. That's right. Less stress, less time, more results. When you need the right person to cut through the chaos, it's a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support this show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Reminder, if you haven't already, you can get Locked On Wolves ad-free with the Everydayer Club. Just sign up, lockedonwolves.supercast.com, link in the show notes, and you'll get access to this show ad-free. Plus, you'll also get Discord access for members only. There's a Discord channel that we're in daily, and it's a ton of fun that you can join again at lockedonwolves.supercast.com. All right, let's talk Zyon Pullin. If the name sounds familiar, it means you've been watching Iowa Wolves G League games, or you remember him from preseason when he signed an Exhibit 10 contract, was on the preseason roster for the Wolves, and was played in preseason games, saw preseason action with the Timberwolves. Zyon Pullin is a 5-year college player. He is a point guard. He's a pretty big point guard. He's 6'4". And I should also say last year was his rookie season. The only NBA action he's gotten in the regular season was 3 games with, somewhat ironically, the Memphis Grizzlies, who the Wolves will see, of course, tonight. He played 4 seasons at UC Riverside, and then he finished his career at Florida and averaged 15.5 points per game at Florida, 5 assists, shot 45% on threes on decent volume, had 78 3-point attempts, which, over the course of a college season, that was like a little over 2, almost like 2.25 a game with the Gators. The year prior, his last year at UC Riverside, he scored 18 points a game and was just a shade under 40% from outside the arc. So the 3-point shooting got better as his college career wore on. The volume obviously increased. The assists were always in the 4 to 5 assist range. The final 4, take out his freshman year at UC Riverside. Since then, he was a +4 assist guy. So well-rounded, good size at 6'4". He also has a 6'6" wingspan. So obviously an older guy, right? 5-year college player. So he is actually about to turn this week. Actually today, Tuesday, believe it or not, is his 25th birthday. So happy birthday, Zyon Pullin, getting a 2-way deal with the Timberwolves. We'll talk about him first, and then I'll talk quickly about why the Wolves signed and released Julius Bernard, and then signed Zyon Pullin. But let's talk about Pullin as a player first. He really is a point guard. He scored a bunch in the G League, and I do want to get into that. What he brings to the table is, I would say he's a dynamic point guard. He's not like a crazy athlete, but he's very fast in the open floor. If you watch what he did with the Iowa Wolves, he's a pace pusher. Think of what he does in the open court like a smaller Ayo Dosunmu, in terms of, like, to give just like a quick and dirty recent example of somebody who gets the ball and just goes. If you watch, just go watch a highlight video of him at Iowa, and like half the video, I promise you, will just be like him taking the ball and going 1-on-3 in the half court, just simply because he's faster and is playing harder than anybody else. Now, does that work at the NBA level? At the G League level, you get a lot of shoddy defense, a lot of shoddy transition defense, guys that are like, yeah, this is a business decision. I'm not going to, work really hard to keep up with this dude who wants it more than me. But like you see that occasionally in the NBA, like you'll see it against the Grizzlies tonight, right? Like that happens. But over 14 games in the G League this year, Zyon Pullin is like 25 a game with the Iowa Wolves. He's shooting like 43, 44% on threes, on about 2.5 per game. The 2-point percentage is also really good. It's just a shade under 50%. A lot of it is at the rim in transition. He also shoots a lot of pull-ups from 10, 12, 15 feet right around the elbows. He has a nice little pull-up turnaround jumper there. Really, it's a lot of the same spots the Wolves are getting shots right now. It's transition opportunities. It's at the rim in transition and secondary break or semi-transition. And it's the weird, like elbow, not weird. It's weird because for like 10 years, nobody shot the ball around the free throw line really, besides like Chris Paul. And now it's happening more. Obviously, Julius Randle does it a bunch, and Ant has added that to his game. But Pullan is good at getting to his spot in pick and roll game. He's also just a really good passer. Like you could argue he's more of a scoring point guard. I would say he's more of a scoring point guard than a combo guard, partly because of the size. He's not a great defender either. So, those things matter. So not a great defender, not an elite athlete, but he's a good athlete. He's very fast, good size, really good size for a point guard. And he's pretty physical with the ball in his hands. He knows how to use his body. He knows how to absorb contact. I really like him as a potential backup point guard. And the reason why I think the Wolves made this move now is in some ways similar to what they did with Bones Highland last year. Remember, they signed Bones Highland almost exactly a year ago. Obviously more of a veteran guy, had been in the league for a few years. It was much more of a I'll use the term high variance again, where like, hey, if Bones can help us down the stretch this year, if anybody gets hurt or is out with foul trouble or we're resting guys on a back-to-back and we'd love to still get a W, we'll bring in Bones and he could score 20 quick points. That's not exact, but the side part of that was like, we'll have inside track to bringing him back next year. He'll want to be around Chris Finch and Anthony Edwards and Tim Conley and him. Obviously, Conley drafted him in Denver. The idea being like, if we want Bones back, Bones is more likely to come back here and get him integrated, get him the whole thing, right? That's, I think, what's happening here with Zyon Pullin, which is he's been with Iowa for a good chunk of the season. He's been really good. He was with us in preseason. We obviously like the guy. Other teams like the guy. He's bounced around a little bit. Let's add him to the roster now. Get a look at him in, whatever practices the Wolves manage to have left the rest of this year. But shoot-arounds, get him into the film room, get to know him a little bit better in the facility, which they know him some from preseason and the Iowa Wolves, and keep him close to the team, available, can play in a pinch, the whole thing, because I think they like him for the future. Remember, this is a team that there is no, like, not that he's got the upside of Rob Dillingham, because he doesn't, but he's got some upside for the future, some growth to be had, and there are no other point guards on this roster. There's none, actually. Mike Conley is it. Like, that, there are no other point guards, and so obviously they're going to go out and try and figure out what that position could look like in the future. But if nothing else, could this guy enter next year competing for the backup point guard spot? I mean, I think the answer is yes, right? Like, given what the Wolves think they have in what he can do now and also any potential upside, I truly believe there's some upside for him as a score first point guard off the bench. And he's big enough that you don't have to worry about too much drop off there. Like, it's not like he's not Tyus Jones size. He's not Rob Dillingham size, for that matter. He's got some size to him at 6'4" with a 6'6" wingspan. You'd like him to compete a little bit defensively. You want to know, the shooting sure seems to be for real, given that he finished college shooting 44% from three his senior year. He shot 44% in the G League this year. He's 37% total in the G League overall over the course of 25 or so games over the last 2 seasons. It's just he's a well-rounded player. And I think Minnesota, like, you're not signing a two-way guy now to help you over the final 6 weeks of the regular season, like real rotation minutes, but they've got another option. They've got another guard. They've got somebody that they can have handle the basketball that's been in, that's been consistently playing at least in the G League the last couple seasons. And I like him I like how he profiles as a potential bench guard in the near future. Quickly, why they have him and they let go of Jules Bernard, who they signed and then waived a couple days later. Jules Bernard's going to stay with the Iowa Wolves. He was an Exhibit 10 guy, was also with the Wolves before the season before the season started. And Bernard is more of a wing, right? Like a straight wing, jack of all trades, master of none type player. And I thought it was a little strange when they decided to sign him to the two-way, because I was like, I don't know that there's some redundancies there. I don't know that he's going to do that much down the stretch roster-wise for you if you need him. There's a lot of guys like Jules Bernard, no offense, but there just are. I think Zyon Pullin's a little more unique. Clearly what the Wolves were doing is Bernard now gets a nice bonus for having been elevated to a two-way roster spot. Now he's been waived. He still gets paid like a two-way player, and he can go back and play with the Iowa Wolves, and the Wolves can then, and it doesn't impact the cap, right? The cap space at all. The cap situation is not impacted by this little, I guess, rope-a-dope sort of a move that Tim Conley pulled. Not saying he rope-a-doped Jules Bernard. I'm sure that the agent, it was all in the up and up. And now they get to, moving on from Bernard on the big roster, they get to bring in Zyon Pullin and a little bit more upside, a little bit more of a positional need, somebody who probably has a better shot at sticking for next year. And whether they were doing this as a solid for Jules Bernard because they like the guy, or maybe they like him for next year, or I don't know who his agent is. I didn't do that much digging, but is there an agent relationship there that like, hey, we'll get your guy, paid a little bit extra beyond the Exhibit 10, which is essentially has bonuses built, or has not essentially, it does have a bonus built in, but now also this two-way elevation late in the regular season is a benefit moving forward for Jules Bernard too. So it's just another example. It's not quite to the level of like the Kyle Anderson sign and trade that got him extra money with Golden State last season before the year. That clearly it's been reported like that impacted SloMo wanting to come back to Minnesota is Tim Conley and the Wolves did him a solid then. Like it's the sort of thing that Conley's really good at. And I'm not sure it's something that people realize matters, but it really does. So I wanted to make sure to point that out. All right, let's close by talking Wolves Grizzlies. We'll take a spin around the league here, look at the standings and what's next this week. We'll do all that here next to close out the show. Today's episode of Locked On Wolves is brought to us by our friends at BetterHelp. The show is sponsored by BetterHelp. March is a time to celebrate women, especially around International Women's Day, and to recognize just how much they carry at work, in relationships, in families, and in all the unseen roles that they step into every single day. It's easy to celebrate that strength, but it's just as important to make space for their emotional well-being. Honestly, that goes for all of us. My mom has had a huge impact on my life, and she's always there for me, for my family, for my kids now as their grandmother. And she's always been strong through thick and thin, through everything. My wife is the same way for my kids. Just phenomenal women in my life. And they carry a lot without complaining, right? And without complaining is not even the right word, but without, creating concern for others. But sometimes, like, we just don't talk enough about the pressure that they can experience. And therapy can help with all that, creating balance, setting healthy boundaries, and supporting your overall well-being. With over 30,000 licensed therapists and more than 6 million people served worldwide, BetterHelp is the world's largest online therapy platform, and it works. Fill out a short questionnaire, get matched with a licensed therapist, and if it's not the right fit, you can switch at any time. Your emotional well-being matters. Find support and feel lighter in therapy. Sign up to get 10% off at betterhelp.com/LockedOnNBA. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. Today's episode is also brought to us by our friends at FanDuel. College basketball is nonstop. Big games, tight spreads, momentum swings every single night. From early tip-offs to late-night West Coast shootouts, there's always action on the board. And now FanDuel is giving you a way to turn that energy into even bigger potential wins with a college basketball parlay profit boost. You can build any college hoops parlay that you want. Rivalry games, ranked matchups, whatever fits your appetite when it comes to college basketball. Right now, heading into the final couple weeks, week and a half or so of conference play into conference tournaments, you can make spreads, totals, player props to match how you see the slate playing out. Then you can apply the profit boost and instantly bump up the potential payout. Go safe, maybe go bold. Ride with the team you've been following all season. It's your parlay, your style. now with more upside behind it. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com. FanDuel, play your game. All right, let's talk Wolves Grizzlies. The last time we saw Memphis, bit of a sore spot, I think, for Timberwolves fans. That was 2 games in Memphis consecutively with, I think, 1 day in between when the calendar turned January to February. Minnesota won the first game as they should have, and then they went out and lost the second game. If I remember right, Jaren Jackson Jr. did not play in the first game. He did definitely play in the second game. Of course, he's no longer in a Memphis Grizzlies uniform. He has been traded and is now a member of the Utah Jazz. And I mean, he's a member of the Utah Jazz, but he's not playing currently for the Utah Jazz. This Memphis team looks a lot different now. There's 10-day contract guys getting significant run. Ryan Rupert played 33 minutes for them, was second on the team in minutes played last night or Sunday when they beat Indiana. Like other guys, like they got in the trade with Utah, the Jaren Jackson trade. Walter Clayton Jr. starting and playing 34 minutes, leading them in minutes the other night. Taylor Hendricks, 19 points off the bench in that game. It's a completely different team than we saw a month ago. So a lot of the season-long stuff is I don't want to say completely irrelevant, but largely irrelevant when it comes to evaluating this matchup. So we'll talk a little bit about what they've done since the trade deadline. But like looking at again, going back to the game when they beat Minnesota by 9 back, first game that the Wolves played in February. Jaren Jackson played a huge role. Jock Landale played a big role. He's gone in that same trade. Other guys out for the season. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope is out for the season. Let's see. Ty Jerome is out right now. He didn't play Sunday. I believe he's going to miss the Wolves game too. Vince Williams was traded in that deal. So again, lots of guys that are gone, lots of guys that are there. Really, the only constants are some of these kind of fringe guys in the rotation. Let's see. Another guy that they acquired that's going to play a lot, Javon Small. Like it's just a weird roster. And Scottie Pippen Jr. healthy playing. He was a guy I liked as like a sleeper target for the Wolves at the trade deadline. He played and scored 16 minutes in their win over the Pacers the other night. So I do also want to, I guess, going back to the win over the Pacers. This team's won 2 in a row. Like they're not good. Don't get me wrong, but they have won 2 games in a row, and they did beat the Wolves last time out, even though it was a different team. They generally play hard. They play fast, which sometimes the Wolves can get beat by teams that play with pace, even though Minnesota's playing with a lot of pace lately. But again, I'll go for the third time in 3 segments. I think today I'm using the term high variance, but teams will create a high variance atmosphere that are losing. And even if the team is tanking, the coach wants to win, the players want to play well. And this team did just beat Dallas, who's tanking, and the Pacers, who are tanking, in their last 2 games by 19, and then actually by 19 in each game. Prior to that, though, they lost to a banged-up Warriors team. They lost to a bad Kings team. They lost to an up-and-down Heat team. They did beat the Jazz prior to that. Before that, they'd lost 4 straight. So it's mostly been down since the last time they played Minnesota. Since the trade deadline, this team has gotten worse defensively. So since trading Jaren Jackson, no surprise, they've been really bad defensively. They're 24th in defense, according to Clean the Glass, since the deadline. They are 12th, though, in offense. So on the season, they're kind of like lower middle third, like in the 18th to 22nd range overall on both ends of the floor. But since the deadline, they've gotten better offensively and worse defensively. They're 3-7 in their last 10, and all coming since the trade deadline. So 3-7 really since the last time they saw Minnesota. But 2 of those 3 wins came the last 2 games out. The one thing you have to look for, in addition to the pace, is the 3-point shooting. They've shot the ball well over their last 10 games. They've got guys in the rotation that shoot the ball. Cam Spencer's been good for them all year, largely coming off the bench. He's 44% from 3. Javon Small, who I mentioned a minute ago, he's 41% from 3. Ty Jerome, who seems unlikely to play. He didn't play against the Pacers. He played his first game of the year against the Wolves. I guess since then, he's played in 7 of 10 games. So I guess maybe he does play. I don't know. There is no injury report out yet as I record this. But if Ty Jerome plays, he obviously killed the Wolves in that game earlier this month at the very beginning, or I should say the very beginning of February. He's 41% from 3. Olivier Maxence Prosper for over 40%. So like dudes that are playing for them can shoot the basketball and they play fast. They're not good defensively. They're not going to contain the ball. You don't have Jaren Jackson Jr. protecting the rim or securing the glass. There's going to be rebounding issues for this team as well. They're poor rebounding the ball on both ends of the floor. In fact, they're dead last in the league in defensive rebound rate since the trade, and they're bottom 5 in offensive rebound rate. Okay. So it's all about pace and shooting threes. The Wolves should kill them on the glass. It should be a big Rudy Gobert game. He should be able to lock down the paint. And the Wolves should be able to really get whatever they want offensively against a team that's been so bad defensively. The one thing they have done, and my theory on this is it's more matchup related than anything else. They've turned teams over more than anybody else. They're forcing opponents to turn the ball over on over 18% of possessions since the trade deadline. I think part of that is, like I said, the matchups they've had. Like they played Portland twice since then. They played the Kings twice since then. They played the Pacers. They've played the Warriors twice. You turn it over a lot. They've played teams that just turn the ball over a bunch. And even though they're just 3-7, it's one of the ways they've hung around in some of these games. And then obviously you look at the most recent wins against the Pacers and Mavericks too. So it's still a scary game. I think Minnesota is favored by 14.5, if I'm not mistaken, over at FanDuel. So it's obviously a game the Wolves should win. But given some of these losses, including to this, not the same, but technically the same Memphis team about a month ago, it's fair to be cautious heading into this game. Presumably Kyle Anderson will be available. The signing was announced on Monday, like we talked about earlier. So perhaps he'll play in this game. Perhaps he won't. But that would be fun if he got to play against Memphis. And I don't know, maybe Zyon Pullin will play. Who knows? Hopefully there is garbage time. And we can talk about some of these guys. Not that Kyle Anderson would play much garbage time, but all that to say, should be fun. Hopefully it's fun. If they lose, it won't be fun at all because it'll be a pretty miserable loss. Post-game pod, or I should say the live postcast with Jack and Luke, of course, on YouTube immediately following. And if you miss it live, you can listen right here on this feed wherever you listen to podcasts. And then I'll be back early on Wednesday with the post-game pod talking all things Wolves Grizzlies and what went down on Tuesday night at Target Center. Big thank you for making Locked On Wolves your first listen every single day. Of course, this show is free and available everywhere. That includes YouTube as well as all of your favorite audio platforms. Wherever you like to listen to podcasts, you can find Locked On Wolves. You can also watch on the Locked On Sports Minnesota app on both Roku and Amazon Fire TV. A reminder that if you never miss an episode, the Everydayer Club is built for you. Get Locked On Wolves ad-free, plus members-only Discord access and more. Head to lockedonwolves.supercast.com to join the club. For those of you on video, we'll send you to the first ever 24/7 national NBA YouTube channel after the show is over. On audio, make sure you make your second listen NBA game night over at Locked On NBA. Of course, Locked On Wolves is part of the very same Locked On Podcast Network. Wherever you like to listen to podcasts, you can find Locked On Wolves, your local experts on all your favorite stories. Once again, I'm Ben Beecken. This is the Locked On Wolves podcast, and we'll catch you next time.